Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and happy Valentine's Day. Welcome back to the Segerstrom. My name is Enrico Lopez Yañez. I'm your principal pops conductor here at the Pacific Symphony. And for those of you who are wondering what we're doing or why this setup is here, we used to do this. This is called Cocktails with the Conductor. We were upstairs before, and we have lowered, I don't know, in some way downgraded in a way, level-wise, but upgraded because now more of you get to hear and see this event before concert. So we're very excited to be here. This is our opportunity to give you a little sneak peek, a little behind-the-scenes look at some of the music and artists that will be joining us on stage that you have come out to listen to. And tonight you're in for quite the treat. We have a fabulous guest from Pink Martini with us. Please join me in welcoming Edna Vazquez.
Hello. Good evening. Happy Valentine's Day.
So Edna, before we talk a little bit about Pink Martini, I thought we would start by learning a little bit about you and your career, which is very interesting. So if you could, tell us a little bit about how you got into music and made your way to the United States and all of that, how your career has taken off.
All right. Well, I came to the U.S. when I was 17. I'm here because I'm gay, and I ended up here. And just by accepting my life since the beginning, and this is why I'm mentioning this, it has taken me into ways that I never imagined, such as music. So right at 17, I joined a mariachi band, and I spent 19 years with the mariachi band, and having some experiences with an all-male mariachi band, it was really, really hard for me to express my ideas. And so I started composing really when I was like 13, something like that, when I picked the guitar also. But it was not until I was 17 that I came and I joined this mariachi band that I started this journey that I never imagined. Then, as I was telling you, after having all these issues as a woman with the mariachi band, I ended up doing my own creativity, my just letting my creativity lead me for where I was going to. And it's been 27 years now. I joined Pink Martini in 2017. But after the mariachi band, I was in a punk band, I was in a rock band, I was in a quartet, and I had a quintet, and I am here now, and I'm also doing my solo project, and this is what I've been doing since then.
That's amazing. And you've had such an interesting career because, as you mentioned, you started on guitar. You're obviously a singer, composer as well, and your career, though now is very connected with Pink Martini, you've also done projects all over the world with other artists. You've worked recently at places just up the street with Gustavo Dudamel and the LA Philharmonic, both at Disney Hall and at the Hollywood Bowl. Can you tell us a little bit about some of those projects that are separate from Pink Martini that you've worked on?
Yeah, I think those projects came along with the Recording Academy, with the Latin Recording Academy, because I also joined Flor de Toloache. If you're familiar, this is an all-female mariachi band from New York City. And I happened to share the night at the Latin Grammys. And but your question was,
how did all the LA stuff come to be? Like, how?
Yeah. So I think all that came through the Recording Academy. Somebody seeing my work, and my songwriting talks about our social issues, our community issues, and about us just trying to know each other, to look at our faces without fear. And so that's what I've been promoting. And so I was invited to do Canto de Resistencia, which means we the people, right?
And the song of resistance.
Yes, and songs of resistance. And I was not going to perform with Dudamel, but Mon Laferte, which was one of the huge Chilean Mexican celebrities there, she ended up sick. And by serendipity, I ended up performing one of her songs. So they asked me to perform, if I could perform the song that she was performing a day before the show. And so I said, no, I cannot learn the song like a day from another, and I don't want to. But my wife, she thought that could be a great opportunity, and I kept on saying no. And I saw that it was Walt Disney, so they have teleprompters. So I asked them if I could have a teleprompter, and I could be less nervous because it's lyrics that I didn't even learn before, and it was a total new song, and I dared to do it, and that's how I ended up with Gustavo Dudamel.
That's amazing.
Amazing.
Oh, wonderful. So how did the connection to Pink Martini happen? You obviously, you came to the United States, and who from the group sort of got to know you, or how did that come
Yeah. Well, I was promoting one of my albums in Music Millennium in Portland, and this was the album Sola Soy with my experimental band. So there was Thomas Lauderdale DJing that night, and so I played all of my songs, and then at the end of my set, I ended up playing a song that Chabela Vargas used to sing. And so Thomas came to me, and I didn't know who he was. And he said, "Did you know Chabela Vargas recorded with Pink Martini?" And I said, "No, who's Pink Martini?" So he disappears, and he came back with the stash of all of the Pink Martini's collection. And he gave it to me. And he said, "Someday I'm gonna call you." 2 years later, Thomas Lauderdale calls me right at the night at the Latin Grammys. And of course, I was so grateful for it. And there was another challenge back then because he said, "Would you like to learn this Romanian song?" And I said, "Sure." But he wanted it in 1 week. So imagine Romanian as a language that I don't speak. And then, so that's how I ended up with Pink Martini, because I, accepted all these songs. And I guess that's the way things happen, you just dare to do it, and we just do it.
It's amazing. One of the things, you mentioned Romanian, that I love about this concert and Pink Martini in general is that it's truly a tour around the world. I mean, the styles of music, the languages of music that Pink Martini has covered and recorded are almost endless. And tonight, we'll be listening to over a dozen different languages on stage that are sung. What is that process like for you as a musician to have to dive into both styles of different cultures, languages that you're probably, like you said, never sung before? What is that process like?
It's fascinating. I feel so connected to Pink Martini. Pink Martini's music is my parents' music. I grew up listening to that music, to Ray Conniff, Burt Bacharach, and it's fascinating, just getting into knowing this world of musicians, like really talented musicians, and that connection to the 70s. I'm from 1978, so I'm 46 years old. I kind of grew up with that connection too, and that quality of music, when the music had messages for us and made us dream, and I guess the connection is perfect, and life just guides us into what we añoramos.
And what we yearn for and dream for.
Yes.
Yeah, that's amazing. And now, this year is a special year for Pink Martini. You said you joined in 2017, but this year, Pink Martini is celebrating 30 years that they've been together and touring, performing music. So this is sort of their big anniversary tour. And of course, people have changed, musicians have come and gone from the group, and even tonight there are a couple new percussionists that I've never worked with. I've worked with Pink Martini for, I think 7 or 6 years ago was the first time that we worked together too. What is it like having, of course, that core group, but then musicians that come in and out of an ensemble? How does that affect the dynamic and the songs that get chosen and things like that?
It doesn't affect it a lot. There's an effect in all of us, like in chemistry and all that, but we all get that level of respect for each other, and we embraced each other too, you know. Yeah, I'm not saying that it's always everything perfect, but you know, it's just the way we like working,
Yeah.
you know, in the real world, just, you know, having real dialogues and like we used to, you know. Now that everybody spends so much time in their phones and stuff, and you know, we have that, we feel like we have that with new musicians that come, and usually the musicians that come, they're very also in the same page,
Yeah,
you
that's
know.
great. I'm sure helps keep the vibe going together. Part of what I love about Pink Martini is, like you mentioned, there's literally a stack and stack of music and albums and collections that have been recorded. So every time you see Pink Martini, of course, there are some tunes that are classics that you expect to hear and you want to hear every time. But every time I've worked with them, there's always a couple songs that I'm like, oh, I've never done this one with the group. And tonight is no exception. There are several of sort of the old arrangements that have been brought out that haven't been done in a while. Things like Que Sera Sera and Aspettami are some that I haven't done, at least not recently. How does that help sort of keep the music fresh for you guys as performers and sort of, you know, when you're on tour all the time performing music like a group?
Yeah, every time is like if it was the first time performing a song. I mean, the very first time that I listened to Aspettami it has that vibe that Pink Martini has endured all these years, you know. I think that's what it is. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a timelessness to the music that exists in Pink Martini is something that I've always loved about it, as well as then a sort of tradition that ensemble has, because there's sort of the classic tunes that everybody wants to hit, the hits, everyone comes out for the hits, and then you get a couple of new selections that are still very much in that style. It's kind of the reverse from some of the more sort of maybe like top 40s hits or things like that. When you have a band that's sort of a one-hit wonder and everyone wants to hear that hit, but then they play their new stuff and people are like, yeah, but we want to hear the classic stuff. Pink Martini, it's all classic stuff. And no matter if it's a tune that you haven't heard before, it's in that same style. And so it's still, I think, approachable and exciting to hear, regardless of whether it's one of the hits or not.
Right, and in my experience, in these 7 years, some fans request a song, like an old song, and they would play it like if we rehearsed it, like, you know.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I'm counting myself, but usually, you know, I'm just saying they would play that song, like if it was the very
Yeah.
next day.
I want to ask you about one of your songs that you play a couple of your original songs on the show, and you have some really unique ways of how you play guitar on one of them in particular. Can you talk a little bit about sort of the way that you approach the instrument and singing? Because I think for the audience, they'll see you perform in a way that often you don't see a guitar singer perform.
Yeah, me and my guitar, I feel like we're just one. And my spirit escapes through the whole. And so that's why I just let myself guide me into the creativity that I imagine. And when I grab my guitar, I want to hear my voice resonating with what I'm hearing, which is, this is too subjective probably, but I know that I can grab my guitar and do whatever I want on stage, and this is not to show off. This is what I feel inside, and so I'm not ashamed to show that on stage. We perform, but mostly than performing, we give ourselves to what we love, and we project it to you uniquely and in ways that we imagine. At least that's what I feel up on stage. I'm not ashamed to be me, so I grab the guitar and I just make her mind and make her talk the way I imagine she would.
Captivating and really special, and you're right, it gives sort of this intimate feel between you and your instrument, which as a singer your instrument is inside you, but then you're pairing another instrument on top of that and creating this whole kind of world, which is very unique. I really love how you work on that.
Thank you.
That's great. There are a couple other sort of surprise moments in the evening, some things that Pink Martini doesn't always do. One of them, which I've only done once with the group before, is that Thomas Lauderdale, the leader and originator of Pink Martini, also does a four-hand version, not his own four hands, but him and his partner, of Rhapsody in Blue. And that's just one of the all-time great pieces of American music to have ever been composed. And if you haven't heard Rhapsody in Blue, it's a fantastic composition on its own. We just celebrated 100 years just last season since Rhapsody in Blue had been written. But if you have seen it even a million times, seeing it with two pianists playing Rhapsody in Blue in four hands is such a unique experience, because they're able to expand upon what this original composition does, and it's almost like watching a circus act of sort of these incredible techniques and crossing over one another, and it's this true partnership that is just so special and fun to watch. And you've gotten to be around it and watch it, and so I wonder if there are any other moments like that's one for me that's very much stands out and is special about the show. What about for you? Is there anything that you say is like, this is the moment I look forward to every time we perform?
Yes, unfortunately they're not playing that song tonight, but Carioca is one of my favorite songs where it's kind of like what I do with the guitar. They just go loco on it, right. And it's amazing to watch that connection with Thomas and another pianist. Well, Hunter is his partner, but there's like a special connection and chemistry happening when there are two musicians interacting.
That's right. And Thomas asked something very unique in rehearsal today of the musicians in the orchestra. So, as you know, Rhapsody in Blue is a piece for piano as the soloist, but there are so many little moments for the orchestra also that are solos. There's a huge, very famous and very difficult solo at the very beginning of the piece that is played by the clarinet. And it's the one that starts with this trill and then this huge gliss up multiple octaves to this high note. And Thomas stopped in rehearsal and he said, I love what the whole orchestra is doing. I would like to ask that if you have a solo, stand up if you feel comfortable at any point in time. Now, I've had the privilege of working with a lot of orchestras, and most orchestras, I'd say 99% of them would be like, no, we're not doing that. We're not gonna stand up. Like, we are here, we're focused on our music, that is another element. And I have to say, you'll be surprised at how many musicians are willing to stand up in this group. It's pretty exciting. So if you've seen it, you haven't seen it with four hands, and if you've seen it even with four-hand pianos, you haven't seen it with the musicians standing up at random point in times during their solos, which adds just, again, this other sort of spectacle element to it. Pink Martini is just already such a huge and spectacular ensemble paired with an orchestra, which I think makes it even bigger and more grand. It's something very special about the evening. And like the musicians in the orchestra who are doing these extra things, you on stage are also, because you're jumping around from singing backup vocals, and some people are playing percussion, and then they're singing, and then they're going and playing drum set, and there's sort of this constant circuit of movement happening throughout the evening. It's pretty spectacular, and I'm so glad that you'll all get to experience that tonight. As you can see, it's a well-attended house tonight. Hello, everybody up there. They're awake, some of them. Some already had their cocktails, which is great. but you are all in for quite a treat. I want to thank Edna Vasquez again for being here with us this evening. Thank you all for joining us this evening, and we hope you enjoy Pink Martini with your Pacific Symphony. Thank you.
Thank you very much.